I want to let you guys ask questions. So why is Katrina on the panel? Why am I here? Because because once again, there's so many myths, and we've talked about this, and I know we're not going to be able to do it all now, but I don't think people really understand how immigration works. And again, people try to, everything you guys said, I concur with that, and I second that. I get another motion, I'm sure, for anybody in here. And so for me, it's really important to educate people on how does the system actually work? How do people actually get here? They didn't get here on their own. If it's employment-based, you had to have a company, right? So how does that work? And I know people have said, what is H-1B? And what about the doctors? And how do so we talk about all these areas of shortage in healthcare and the rural communities, and we need doctors, and we need to have IT, and we need infrastructure. And then we look around, and guess what? We as a country, we should have been planning this 20, 30 years ago. But what do? We have, instead of having the highest group of individuals in innovation in our country, we have the highest number of people in prison. Mm-hmm. We did that. That's our country. That's our responsibility. So now we have the shortage, but then we want to say we don't want people here. We're scared about people being here. So I really want to be able to answer some questions about that. So the part that's hard for me is, you guys, this is dear to my heart. One thing I cannot stand is somebody being left out. I was the little girl that if I saw my little Asian friend or I saw anybody that was being picked on, I would stop playing, get off the swing, and I would go see about it, okay? I'm that person. And so it hurts my heart to see and hear the things that I hear. So I can't really talk about it like straight out, so I'm gonna say something really quick about my position on this, and then I'm gonna let you ask the questions, and I'm gonna finish with a poem that all of you know, so that we can kind of leave with that. So let me say this, because I love you. I'm not gonna look at you. I love y'all, okay? So I, of course, stand with our Muslim and our South Asian neighbors. There's no place for hate in our communities. We can support the rule of law while we still are treating every person with dignity and respect. We can pursue justice, fairness, and accountability without tolerating fraud or demonizing entire communities. Law and love are not opposites. They can and they should exist together. We are strongest when we protect both the integrity of our laws and the humanity of our neighbors. That's all I'm going to say about that. So I want to be able to, so that you guys know, we talked about this, but the name of my firm is Akula and Associates. So I don't usually talk about it, but I told her today I was going to say that because I think I have a unique experience in that 90% of our clients, that's a lot of the people that we deal with. And I practice primarily employment-based immigration. Although I've been in immigration in all different areas, I started with removal, I started with asylum. My university was the one that started with female genital mutilation, where people came here. That case, that was my school, making that something that was a social group. Then I moved on to the family immigration and family reunification. So I did that side of it. I've had pieces of seeing this whole thing since 1998. And again, whose fault is it that we haven't changed the law since 1998?
Republicans.
I'm going to say yes, and everybody else who had the opportunity but decided because they didn't want somebody else to get the credit, they don't do a damn thing. So we are responsible once again, not anybody else. So that was one of the things that that's my overview on that. I also think it's important to have these laws in place for immigration. We do need them. Now, you guys, there are protections, right? Laws for protection too. So I also served on the Maryland State Human Trafficking Committee because that is huge. And so if we don't have certain laws in place, those are our very vulnerable populations. So that too is true. So now I'm going to go to the H-1B program and ask, is everybody familiar with H-1B? How about this? Is there anybody who really doesn't understand what H-1B does? Are you serious? Oh, okay. She is on my team. I just did not know. So H-1B is a temporary visa. You guys hear about it all the time. And it's the visa that means the person has to have, or the equivalent of, a bachelor's degree or higher for it to be called a specialty occupation. And if they're able to show that, and they're able to prove through the Department of Labor who has to certify these positions and that this job is available and that they're not circumventing certain things for U.S. workers. There's things that they have to do. Once they show that, if they do, they can bring people here in the areas of shortage for our country. That is the journal. And that could be a teacher, right? We have the different visas. That could be a doctor. It's all these different things, and they're temporary. So what happens is that particular visa is only for 6 years. But what happens is our system, depending on where you come from, you guys have heard the backlog. You talk about get in line. Have you heard everybody say get in line? Oh, yeah. You know, what do they mean by get in line? They say wait your turn. Well, what happens is that because, again, we haven't really done what we, to me, and I'm speaking personally, not on behalf of my firm, this is Katrina Moore, is that we haven't fixed it so that now we have the countries that have many, many people, and we only have so many visas a year that we give out. So when that number goes away and it's used up, that backlog just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse over years. So an Indian national, let's say, or a Chinese national who gets in line, they're following the law. They're following our laws. It'll take 15, 16, 18 years before they get that green card when they're standing in line. And while they're here, guess what they're doing? Buying houses, working, paying taxes, kids paying to schools, contributing to the community, serving us, taking care of that cancer, taking care of they're doing all those things that entire time. And just think about right now with the attack. You've been here all this time contributing, and most not doing things that are harmful to the United States. And now you have people saying, guess what? You gotta go. Take your kids who haven't been anywhere else. Take your kids who don't know anywhere else and get out of here. And I know I'm simplifying this, but it's really that scary for some people. And so that's just one group. I'm not going to talk about what happened in Houston yesterday. I don't know if anybody knows about that. So right now we have the policing of people, and so you tell people that don't have the papers, that are trying to get their situation correct, but then while they're doing it, you're snatching them off the street or shooting them in the back. What are we doing? And so how can we as a community, what can we do to support? Well, thank you very much, you guys, you all who started this and who has this conversation. I'm going to say thank you so much, because that's where it starts. At the end of the day, it starts at the kitchen table. Now let me tell you about assimilation. I came from the East Coast. And in the East Coast, when you were really friends, you went to people's houses for dinner. I heard in the South that here it's supposed to be Southern hospitality. But guess what I found out? This is the most segregated place I've ever been in my life. The church is the most segregated place I've seen, except for the mosque. And when I came here, I used to think to myself, oh, we're friends, right? Well, how come I haven't been in your house for 15 years? You can see me outside the house. You can see me at the soccer game, but I've never been in your house. And you can look around, and I want you guys to ask yourself that question. How many people have been to your house that look different from you? That's a hard question, isn't it? Do they look like the rainbow? Or do they look like one type of ice cream? So I want you to think about changing those flavors. Think about really getting into the world of other people and inviting them into your world, because that's how we start taking care of this. That's how we do it. The laws are laws, and you can see that laws were dismantled just like that with the Voting Rights Act. All those people that died, and what happened? Just like that. Because you can't get rid of hate unless you love and have a relationship. That is the only way that works. So, okay, let me stop on my high horse. I want to ask you, who has a question about immigration? Specifically immigration. Nobody has a question about, okay, thank you.
I'm just a little confused about, so with the H-1B program, is there something that the corporations have to pay $100,000?
Oh.
Tell me more about that.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about that. So the $100,000 started last year. That's very new. This is I don't know. It makes no sense to me. You tell me if anybody here who's a small business owner, I've been a small business owner, there's a lot of people in here, you tell me if I needed somebody to come work up the street, and then you told me I needed to pay $100,000 for each person, what would happen to that business? So what we did was, in a way to think that's the way to stop it, we didn't go fix it. We didn't go do legislate. We didn't go come out with a solution. We said $100,000. And so how it works with H-1B typically is that you have the bigger companies who don't necessarily hire directly. So in the books, when they say we don't have immigrants, they don't have employees. But what they usually use are vendors, and the vendors are the ones who have the contracts with the other companies, which are primarily my clients, the staffing companies for our firm. And then they're the ones who go find the talent. They take on those expenses. They take on that employee, and then they place them. And then what's happening is, we talked about this, guys. Here's the economics of it. The money up top, it just keeps getting bigger. Does everybody agree with that? The money up top? But we know that the trickle down isn't real. So what happened to those companies? They still get the same rate that they were paying. But now I have $100,000. And you told me now that the average price for that, it's called a prevailing wage. The Department of Labor sets the wage. Our country sets the wage. Based on where you live, where that person works, what job they're going to do, they determine the level and how much that is. Okay, so that's us. It goes up 10 to 30% each year. Again, it doesn't mean that the end client, that's the person, the big company, doesn't mean that they raise those fees. But now they're trying to make sure what? They stay in business, that we have the talent, and we still need the talent. So it's not, and I'm not blaming anybody. This is not a blame game, because it's a complex, multifaceted, long-term issue. But it's going to take different people that have a different perspective, and it's going to take the people like us, quite honestly, who are on the ground. I am so tired of people making policy that don't know what the hell they're talking about. Whether it's healthcare, whether it's a teacher, whether it's education, if we really want policy that works, get the people at the table who actually can help you write policy that works. So that's generally how it works. So that's now actually it's being sued, and it was stopped, but then the government appealed it. So right now it's still in place, but we're waiting to see if it's going to actually go away. Because if it doesn't go away, at least all the smaller businesses that actually support the bigger businesses, and you guys, it's going to affect all of our infrastructure, all of this. We're trying to compete with the world. How do we do that if we don't have people? So it's not just immigration. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Why don't we have the people, Katrina?
I mean, want me to say it back in the back for the people who didn't hear me? I can say it again.
Say it.
Again, we have to make sure that we are in education having a pipeline, that we get the people, that we are producing individuals that can compete in the economy. If our schools don't have the money, see, these are all connected. That's why it might be immigration, but it's economics. It might be that, but it's business. It all ties to healthcare. None of this stuff is disconnected. So if we don't raise up these kids and we don't give them opportunities and make sure that we give them the tools, the income, and the opportunity to compete, it's not going to get any better. So, and you guys, it's now like when you plant a seed, like a harvest, you don't get it right then. The problem is Americans, I mean, again, I can talk about Americans because y'all are my family and we can talk about each other. You can't talk about y'all, I'm gonna say something. But we can talk about us because we're trying to get better. When we don't plant a seed, you have to wait for that harvest. But we want something so instant all the time that we're not willing to do the work or make the sacrifice like other people did for us. That's the honest truth. So many people did that for us and we just don't want to because we're comfortable. That's the truth. Okay, she said I have to stop, so.
I want to keep going.
Georgiana had a question though, but okay.